Welcome back, Sebastian here. Time for my power rankings for the 2024 Formula E Misano ePrix. So, starting in number 22, I've got Sebastian Buemi. So, let's see. Outraced his teammate Robin Fines once across the weekend. Out-qualified both races, and qualifying has definitely been a struggle for the Swiss driver this year. I believe been out-qualified by Fines when you adjust for qualifying groups every single race so far. The race themselves, obviously the second race got some kind of damage. Hard to say what the exact cause of that was, but nonetheless didn't get any points there. First race, not really. I believe he led several laps at the beginning, but still didn't get any points in the end. So definitely a bit of a struggle this weekend for Buemi. Number 21. Also qualified both races by his teammate and split the races. I've gone with Nick De Vries, and he really only got that one race because Mortara retired on the first lap. For De Vries, another challenging weekend. Qualifying not great, in the race not great as well. I don't think he got in any big incidents I know of that were shown on TV, but I think the reality is the other two Mahindra powered cars, so not himself or his teammate, both of them got points this weekend. The two factory Mahindras, no points on the board, so that's definitely going to sting. For De Vries, another pretty rough weekend for him. Number 20, I'm going to go with Stoffel Van Dorn. Outraced and qualified both races. Did pick up some points the first race, retired the second race. Not a whole lot to say. I think for Van Dorn, he's really been struggling with the efficiency of these Gen 3 cars for a year and a half now. And it's really clear that there's a sizable gap between himself and Vern performance-wise in the races, just being efficient. And yeah, it's really it's not great to see, given that you always want to see your drivers, former champions, doing well. But yeah, for Van Dorn, another tough weekend, so I've ranked him 20th. Number 19, I'm going to go with Norman Nato. Split qualifying once and was outraced both of the two races in Misano. And yeah, for Nato, did get some points, I believe, the second race, or one of the two races. But the other race, I know he picked up a sizable penalty for contact. So yeah, not a great weekend for Nato. Teammate looked much better than him, and for Nato, yeah, I think he'll be. His first half of the season with Andretti, I think, has not gone the way it would have liked compared to how last season went with Nissan. But that being said, his rookie season and last year, he generally picked things up as the year went along. So we'll see if Nato can kind of turn things around and put in some of those great performances we saw at the end of those two seasons in the coming races. Number 18, I'm going to go with Robin Fines. Split his teammate in qualifying and split the races. But for Fines, still a really rough weekend, no points. I believe got sandwiched the second race yesterday. Really unfortunate incident, nothing he could have really done. I'm not sure what happened the first race, although I noticed he basically ended up a lap down very late in the race. But yeah, I think he'll be quite disappointed to come away with no points in a car that should in theory be one of the most efficient powertrains in the field. Which means at bare minimum you should be able to get a double points finish out of that car. So yeah, really terrible weekend for Envision all around. I think he'll be kind of ruining the kind of missed opportunities this past weekend. Number 17, I've gone with Lucas Di Grassi. Split the races and out-qualified both races. For Di Grassi, he'll be happy to get his first points of the season, but I think nonetheless, I think he'll be pretty frustrated with how things went. He was given a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision, so that of course would not have helped things. I believe that was the race that got him knocked out of. I believe it was the race that got him knocked out of the points that time. But for Di Grassi, I think a pretty tough weekend. It's pretty clear he doesn't really have that raw pace in qualifying compared to Muller. The pace in the race is decent, not great, but the fact is that Muller's starting so many positions ahead of him that it's almost impossible to kind of be able to finish ahead of him in those situations, although he did manage it in the first race in Misano. That being said, not a great weekend, I would say, for Di Grassi. Number 16, I've gone with Sam Bird. Let's see, for Bird, out-qualified his teammate and was outraced both times. So for Bird, a bit of a tough one. Yeah, I think let's see. So the first race he only out qualified his teammate because Hughes got disqualified. But then nonetheless, the second race I think was quite sloppy from him. Got contact, got a whole lot of damage from that, and then obviously and then spun on his own and still ended up with a point there. So I think quite fortunate that that happened. The first race got a puncture, retired. Not a whole lot he could have done there, but still not a great weekend for Bird. Unfortunately, this is kind of how he's been the last couple of years, where he'll have races like Sao Paulo, which are excellent, and then he'll have a whole bunch of weekends like this, or Tokyo, where things are kind of just completely off the pace of where they need to be. Number 15, I've gone with Sasha Fenestraz. For Fenestraz, outraced his teammate once and got out-qualified both times. So for Fenestraz, I think qualifying is definitely proven to be a real struggle this year. Qualifying was quite easy for him last year. Got several pole positions, I believe, or at least one or two pole positions with the Nissan last year, season 9. But this year, I think with Roland as a teammate, he's really struggling in that respect. In the races, he's still not as efficient as I think many of the other drivers around him, so it's harder for him to make up positions in the field. Of course, I don't think the Nissan powertrain is the best powertrain in the field either, but still, his teammates clearly showing that it's a pretty capable car. What did pick up some good points the second race. Was a bit fortunate that his teammate was basically had that technical glitch, which basically caused the team to miscalculate how much energy they were using, but still nonetheless not a great weekend for Fenestraz. 14th, I've gone with Eduardo Mortara. Swept his teammate in qualifying and split the races. Of course, the race he lost was the one he retired on the opening lap. For Mortara, not a great weekend. Of course, no points. The other two Mahindra powered cars did get points, but for Mortara, I don't think he did a terrible job. Of course, with those, this would have been. It seems like based on how the outcome of the two races, it seems like this would have been a race where it would have been very beneficial to actually qualify very high up, and then just drafting and coasting and staying in the slipstream, and then kind of hoping for points at the end. But alas, it wasn't to be. And I think for Mortara, I think he'll be a bit disappointed to have no points this far through the season, himself and his teammate being the only drivers without points. But nonetheless, I think he's doing an okay job, and he's definitely doing a better job than his teammate Nick DeVries, I feel. Alright, number 13, I've gone with Jehan Daruvala. First points in Formula E, that second race in Misano. Still got out-qualified both races, and yeah, split the race head-to-head with his teammate Gunther. For Daruvala, this is a big first step, getting his first points in Formula E. I do think it was under a bit fortuitous circumstances. The first race not so great, crashing out on the last lap, and even with the vastly superior powertrain compared to your apps, your ERTs, your Mahindras, he was really struggling to kind of stay ahead of that back group of cars in the first race. With the powertrain advantage that he has, and the fact that he doesn't have the excuse that overtaking is difficult, because this was a track where he had like a record numbers of overtakes. So I do think he's still struggling with the energy management. The qualifying also is not great, and that's something that he really has to improve, I think. Out-qualified both times by Gunther. I believe he's only out-qualified Gunther once this year, and the reality is he's just starting way too far back in the field most races to be able to get points. Simply because he doesn't have the efficiency to be able to move his way through the field. But this weekend was a good starting point, and now going through the second half of the season, a lot of doubleheaders. You'll have a chance to have a lot of races at tracks that he's raced at the previous day. So hopefully he can kind of find some momentum and get some more good points in the second half of the season. Number 12, I've gone with Jake Hughes. Decent result for the McLaren driver. Of course, got pole the second race. Got disqualified the first time from a pretty good qualifying position, but outraced his teammate Bird both times. Was able to pick up some points in the end, but for Hughes, I really feel that it's kind of a similar situation to last year and similar to Fenestraz. The qualifying pace is pretty good. The qualifying pace is there, but the energy efficiency is not quite there yet, and you can kind of see that play out in the races. Number 11, I've gone with Sergio Seti Camara. He split qualifying in the race with his teammate Dan Ticktum. It was kind of a strange one. So for Seti Camara on the first race, I believe he actually would have finished in the points as well, but he unfortunately got a massive penalty for energy overuse. Unfortunately kicked him out of the points. Qualifying that first race as well was a bit of a struggle. I think qualified on the back two rows, Second race was much better. Didn't get to the same heights, the same points that his teammate was able to get to in that first race. I'll talk about that in a bit. Obviously not on the board yet. So that all in all, I think it was like a pretty good weekend for Saitama, coming away with a decent chunk of points at Misano, what I think would be a pretty big achievement for him. But yeah, I think I think he will be ruining that missed qualifying session that first race though. Number 10, I've gone with Mitch Evans. For Evans, he split qualifying in the races with his teammate. Of course, was on pole that first race. Wasn't able to really convert it into a really strong points haul, only finishing 5th in that first race. Second race, really struggled with qualifying, and then I believe had some front wing damage and was unfortunately forced to pit and retire. So not really able to capitalize on that efficiency of that Jaguar powertrain. So a bit of a mixed bag this weekend for Evans. I think he'll be kind of wanting to try to build some more positive momentum, getting points, getting high points finishes, consistently race in, race out, and that's something that he's really struggled with so far this season. Hopefully he can turn that around in the second half of the year. Number 9, I've gone with John-Eric Vergne. So for Vergne, swept qualifying and swept the race head-to-head against his teammate Van Dorn. You'd normally think that would merit being higher up on the board, but I really feel like with that basically the Stellantis powertrain, the DS powertrain, I do feel like those results in the races just aren't there. The results in qualifying were very good, got himself on the front row both races, but the results in the race were just not quite where you'd expect them. And just seeing Gunther got on the podium that first race in that same powertrain showed that the potential is there. And for whatever reason, well, Jeb has, I think, done a really good job this season of making sure he gets point finishes every single race, staying out of incidents, being consistent, having that good pace. That kind of extra, 1%, extra 2% that would allow drivers to get on the podium, get a win, wasn't really there this past weekend. So that's kind of why I'm holding him back a little bit, because we saw with Gunther what that car was capable of, and Jeb just wasn't reaching those same heights. Alright, number 8, I've gone with Dan Ticktum. Split qualifying in the race with his teammate Saitama. Somehow gets a 4th place in an ERT on a track that was very power hungry. Honestly, I don't think anyone would have believed you if you told them that before the weekend. Excellent job by Ticktum, somehow managing a great strategy. I think, unfortunately, that momentum from that first race didn't carry over to that second race, which is why I don't have Ticktum higher. But the fact is, he got 12 points, got a 4th place finish in an ERT. Excellent result that one race, and because of the way the point system is, it rewards getting really high finishing positions. Even if that's his only points in the first half of the season, maybe he does that again sometime in the second half, it would still be a really good haul of points and a much better result points-wise than getting 2 9th place finishes or 2 10th place finishes, or even basically 2 7th place finishes. So anyway, really good job from Ticktum there, kind of really showing that the potential and the speed is still there. It's just kind of a matter of unlocking it consistently. Number 7, I've decided to go with Max Gunther. Swept his teammate Deruvla in qualifying, but split the race head-to-head. So for Gunther, first race was really good, got another solid podium. Of course, benefited from DaCosta getting disqualified, but nonetheless, good result there. Second race, not so good. I'm not sure what happened at the end, but basically he finished in the points, but it seems he was given some kind of penalty after the race, and that dropped him outside of the points. So not great there on that account. But still, nonetheless, I think a pretty good weekend from Gunther, and he'll be pretty happy with how the weekend went. Number 6, I've gone with Nico Müller. Swept qualifying and split the races. So close to that podium. And the qualifying performances have been excellent this season, getting into the duels, I think, the last 3 or 4 races. So really good job in qualifying for Müller. I think in the races he's getting better and getting better week in, week out. I think the team's more comfortable. Certainly much better than they were last year, and I think Muller's making the best use of the car available to him. Alright, moving up to the top row. 5th, I have Antonio Felix da Costa. Should have gotten that race win that first race. I already spoke about the disqualification. Second race, yeah, qualifying was rough, and then unfortunately making his way through the field, got damage with his front wing, and that was it. But that being said, I do think the first race was so strong, the energy efficiency was so good that, you know, I'm fine with putting DaCosta that high up. Number 4, I'm going to go with Nick Cassidy. For Cassidy, split qualifying in the race. That being said, the first race, qualifying was decent both races. His teammate obviously got pole the first race, but for Cassidy, had that incident the first race, kind of took him out, not really a whole lot he could have done. Second race, pretty strong drive, and just steadily moved his way up through the field and grabbed that penalty, that podium on the final corner of the race. And really just kind of trying to build those solid podium results, kind of doing what Jake Dennis did last year to win the title. Hopefully for him, doing the same this year, building towards a title. Alright, number 3, I've gone with Pascal Wehrlein. For Wehrlein, one got swept qualifying in both races, but you know, there was circumstances attached there. For qualifying, really good qualifying performances in general. The first race, not so good, of course, had incidental contact. It seems that first race, front wing damage, similar to Cassidy. Second race, obviously, was kind of fortunate with how that wing came with what happened to Roland at the end, but nonetheless was able to pick up the pieces and bag that win. Alright, number 2, I have Jake Dennis. Double podium, double second place finishes. Obviously a bit fortunate with how things went, but even if the disqualification and Roland basically's car saying no didn't happen, he still would have gone to double third place, a double podium anyway. Recovered from a really poor qualifying that first race, basically moved his way up through the entire field, kept it clean, was very smart with his energy management. I thought did an excellent job this past weekend. And finishing up with number 1, I've gone with Oliver Roland. Swept qualifying, got one of the races, but was on his very close, 1 lap away from a double win. And it seems like the reason that they didn't win, why they misjudged energy, was because of a software issue. Basically, when they pulled from the dummy grid up to the real grid, their software basically went from lap 0 to lap 1, so it calculated everything 1 lap short of what actually happened. So not really Roland's fault. I'm not really blaming him for what happened. I think they should have realized earlier, the team, not Roland, but the team should have realized that something was wrong. The numbers were off. But yeah, unfortunately these things happen, similar to Mexico 2019, although, you know, that was a bit of a different issue. But still, nonetheless, Roland's really strong performance, I felt, at the Misano ePrix, and therefore number 1 on my power rankings. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It always helps. And yeah, we have 2 weeks until the next Formula E race in Monaco. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.